Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. I only point it out because it's part of a larger story. Again, when everybody asks me, hey, why don't you run for school board for your local community? I have to remind everybody, look what they did to Darby Bodie. I've helped get people elected onto the school board in my local community in the way that they decided they couldn't stop her any other way because she was a conservative voice for the community, and that's not the way school boards are designed. And we learned exactly who's running the school, and it's not elected members of the community, it's the legal profession. The lawyers run Lakota schools, and lawyers are actually been running all of our governments, whether it's a president of the United States, it's trying to run for president in France, where Macron is down into the 30s in polling, and Macron was challenging him. She was looking to be she was the front runner, and they got rid of her through legal action. And now we've seen what they've done with President Yoon in South Korea. Impeached him over an action of martial law, and I found a legal way to remove him from office. It's all about lawyers, and they control a lot of our political system. So when you run for an elected office, it's essentially bowing to the master of the legal profession. And this is how it's worked in the background and through finance. When we talk about finance really runs the world, this is the way they built the new world order, and they protect themselves through the legal profession, through the Bar Association. And if you step out of line, they'll do like they did with Rudy Giuliani, because he backed Trump. You saw what they tried to do with Trump in the United States. And it doesn't matter what level of politics you're talking about. Even at the Lakota School Board in a school district in northern Cincinnati, where I live, it's a expensive school. There's a lot of politics involved in it because of the amount of people that are in the community, but it's essentially the same kind of political theater from top to bottom that you see at all levels of politics. And who really runs things? Now, in the case of Lakota, I happen to know all the people involved, including the judges involved in the case. I know all the board members, I know all the politicians that are connected to Lakota schools. And so when they couldn't get rid of her, when we got a conservative majority on the school board and all the different elements out there were lobbying for reform to the school, you had 3 votes to do it now. That wasn't enough, because the real issue is to keep chaos, because that's where these law firms that are attached to the school get paid a lot of money to analyze every little legal quibble that comes down the pike, and it's easy money for them. It's a great way to pad their books, and they don't want to reform the schools. They don't want anything to change, because they profit off the chaos. And that was never more evident than when they sought to get rid of Darby Bodie off the school board member. I personally know Darby. I like Darby quite a bit even now, including an event that I held that involved Vivek Ramaswamy. She can never go to these things because there's this legal case with another school board member that went on, and he went out and got a restraining order against her, and she couldn't, anywhere he showed up, she couldn't be. And it was a real violation to her just because she was on the school board and she was targeted politically, and they took lawfare against her. And as a judge that worked with this other school board member to remove Darby from the school board by using this restraining order as a way that she couldn't serve on. She could not attend school board meetings, so then that violated her obligation to the school board, because she had to maintain a social distance to this other school board member. And that's a legal loophole they used to get her knocked off the school board. So why would you want to be on the school board? Now, I'm not out there discouraging people who want to run for school board to get on. I think we need to find some people who want to do it. But we're talking about the political situation that looms in the background with legal lawfare to actually control the intent of voters. It certainly happened with Darby. It's certainly happening with Macron in France, and it certainly happened with President Yoon in South Korea. and elsewhere. Bolsonaro in Brazil. I mean, you just pick your place, and you see the same kind of attack vector from the legal profession globally. This is an international cabal of these legal professionals, and they built this world order around the rules of that post-World War II criteria that they've established in order to control politics. And if you chase all those roots back, you'll find that finance, local, national, international, are all wrapped up into that facade. And the legal profession then becomes the mask of the real people who are manipulating things in the background. Because like with Lakota, there's lots of contracts that are involved in doing things for the school system that are attached to public money. And even though philosophically people might have opinions about that and be aligned behind GOP politics, it still comes down to who's giving checks out and what do you have to do to get a hold of those checks. Who gets to work for the government, for that government money? So if you're talking about reforming that, of course, the legal profession doesn't want reform. They love the chaos because they come in and get to be the brokers in a legal way of who does what, and they get their fees off that, and it's great money for them. So when Darby comes in and shows that she's going to reform things on the school board, they want to get rid of that chaos because your goal is to come in and vote the way the legal guys tell you to vote, and the way that the people who fund the legal guys want you to vote, and you're supposed to go there and sit and be a spokesman for on their behalf. But that's not what the voters voted for. Voters voted for Darby. In this next election for new school board members, that's how it's going to go down. But unless you deal with that problem, the legal problems that are actually residing in the background of all voters, when people say there's no voter fraud, they haven't looked at it deep enough because they don't want to deal with the question. It's like having a family member that's molesting another family member, and they love that family member, both family members, and they don't want to admit that it's going on because they don't want to not be able to sit down at the dinner table and talk. This problem with the legal profession wrapped up in all of our politics is a major problem, and it's the one that needs most reform. And the Trump administration is certainly dealing with that, and it broke the fever when Trump survived anyway and won an election. The grip that a lot of these legal people have had on our political systems around the world, when he broke it, he broke a lot of things that has incited a panic across the world. But it's the same strategy, the same playbook, no matter where you try to apply it. It's essentially the same game. Doesn't matter if it's Le Pen in France challenging to knock off Macron, or it's Darby Bodie at the Lakota School Board being knocked off because she's too conservative for the Bar Association that actually wants to run the school in the background and gets a lot of money off the kind of legal chaos that takes place with 17,000 students and a bunch of angry parents all the time, and is attached to just about getting taxes from every single business in the community. It's a system that was built to fail, and they profit off the chaos, and they don't want reform to that in any way at all. So when you're talking about coming in and shaking it up and changing rules and regulations and all the things you got to do, and what Vivek Ramaswamy wants to do in Ohio towards that aim is noble. It's a great discussion, but until you change this legal lawfare problem, you're always going to have corruption looming in the background. And back to talking about the Vivek Ramaswamy event and Darby not being able to attend any of these political events. Almost every event I've gone to over the last couple of years now, this legal lawfare took place just because she was on a school board and voiced her opinion. But when she got the legal screws put to her very unfairly, she couldn't go to anything. So she was at some political event, and the person that put the restraining order showed up to it. She had to leave. And I was at a lot of things where I had to actually walk her to her car because she had to maintain a certain distance because this legal mandate that was put on her just to push her off the school board, which after she was off the school board, permeated. It continued. So at this particular Vivek Ramaswamy event, I was the one who was hosting the event. and I was able to set a criteria that protected her legally. So I gave her an opportunity to work behind the scenes so she could stay and listen to the event. That gave her separation in case that person showed up, so that there was proper legal distance applied. But that had to happen was ridiculous. Long after the objective of knocking her off the school board had been fulfilled, it still loomed over her head unfairly. And so when you're out there trying to find out a way to get people to want to run for school board, and they see what happened at Darby, and they see the way the community turned against her, they see the way the legal screws were applied, and now you're personally getting drained of all your finances just because you showed up and got on the school board and did what you thought you were supposed to do. And then all those same people turn their backs on you because you're messing with their breadbasket, because you started affecting the way they make their money. It's one thing to say and politically, hey, this is the way things should be. But then that changes when they're like, when are you going to send me a check? When are you going to give me some money for that government contract? And you have these lawyers who are like, hey, we don't want reform because we make a lot of money off the chaos. Every time the school board with a bunch of people who really aren't very smart are like, well, what's this sentence mean legally? Let's call legal and ask them. And then they charge you $200 an hour, $300 an hour to read the paragraph. And they take an hour to do it. It's a scam that has loomed in the background forever, and you really don't have a proper election system unless you deal with it, and you see it being applied to every single country all around the world because it's connected to international finance. It's who carries the debt, who maintains the debt, and how do the legal parameters of receiving that debt actually transpire, which runs all the governments in the world. Whether it's your local school board or whether it's the president or ex-president now of South Korea, or a challenger in France, or the president in Brazil, all these people they want to throw in jail just like they tried to do with Trump. And it shows you that this is not a localized issue, that just some random cabal of lawyers decided to conspire against people for political control and power. It's a strategy built into the system itself, into all governments, and it's all connected through the tentacles of finance. And this is what Andrew Jackson worried about way back at the early part of the 1800s when you had to have a war on the banks. You cannot have all these influences undermining your election systems. And so until you deal with the lawfare problem, you are always going to have this corruptive influence. And I've seen it in a local school system, and now you see it applied across the global stage. And Trump's been able to break it, and the panic from that breaking is permeating aggressively, and they're all in a panic over it because they want to maintain control that they've had for many decades, and they see themselves losing grip on that power, and now they're having to do things overtly, like throw out through an impeachment the president of South Korea. And because Macron is not doing well and he represents this global world order in a progressive way, and he's only polling in the 30s, and Le Pen is going to knock him off in a fair election, they got to do what they try to do with Trump, and that's keep him off the ballot. And they're going to try and put her in jail and knock her out for qualifications. She can't run for president again for another 5 years, which goes past the next election cycle, which protects Macron and all the people who have invested in Macron to protect their financial assets in the post-World War II, I would say actually the post-Jekyll Island world order that was established to protect finance from the temperaments of political representation. And it goes all the way into your local school districts with these school boards. And I've seen it up close and personal when people ask, well, I'm not all that interested. Well, I'm interested in being in charge. I'm not interested in being a mouthpiece to corruption. And I would say that the next people who run for those school board seats need to be people who can withstand personally the kind of rigor that's going to go in breaking that fever. Just like Trump did at the national level, you have to do it locally as well. And there are a lot of people involved who aren't ready for that kind of reform. They talk like they are, but when it comes to people's bank accounts, they're not ready, and they need to be ready. People need to be prepared for what you have to do to actually have a true representative republic, and cutting finance and all these bar association leftist radicals that love Karl Marx so much, they need to be removed from the process. And until you do that, you're just talking smoke. That doesn't mean it's a hopeless task, but it means it's one that is going to take more than a few gears to utilize in order to climb the hill, because it's going to be a hill to climb, and not pleasant, but necessary. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.